My name is Eleanor, and I'm 67 years old. For the past 40 years, I've lived in the same cozy, two-story house in a quiet suburb of Ohio, the house my late husband, David, and I bought when our daughter, Chloe, was just a toddler. It's filled with ghosts, the good kind. I can still see David in his favorite armchair, Chloe's height marked in pencil on the kitchen doorframe, and hear the echo of laughter from countless family dinners. But lately, the silence in this house has become a physical weight. David passed away 5 years ago, and Chloe, my only child, lives a solid 3-hour drive away in the city. The problem, the one that's been brewing for a while now, is my eyes. Macular degeneration. It's a cruel, slow thief. First, it took the fine print in my favorite novels. Then, the faces of people across the street. 6 months ago, it took the most critical piece of my independence, my driver's license. The doctor was kind but firm. My peripheral vision was shot, and my central vision was getting blurry. Driving wasn't just a risk to me, it was a risk to everyone else on the road. At first, I thought I could manage. How hard could it be? I live in America, the land of convenience. There are Ubers, grocery delivery services, and public transport, right? Well, the reality is a lot grimmer. My small town has one bus line that runs a convoluted route twice an hour, and it stops a mile from my house. Ubers are scarce and expensive out here. Grocery delivery comes with hefty fees and the frustration of getting bruised apples and the wrong kind of milk. My life shrank almost overnight. Doctor's appointments became logistical nightmares. A simple trip to the pharmacy required calling a neighbor and hoping they were free. My book club, my bridge group, my volunteer work at the local library, all of it became dependent on the charity of others. I felt my world closing in, the walls of my beautiful, memory-filled house starting to feel like a prison. The loneliness was the worst part. I'd go days without a proper conversation. Chloe would call, of course. She's a good daughter. She's 32, a successful graphic designer, living with her long-term boyfriend, Mark. She's busy, building a life I'm immensely proud of. Our weekly calls were my lifeline, but they also highlighted the chasm between our lives. She'd talk about a new restaurant, a weekend trip with friends, a demanding project at work. I'd talk about the weather and what the squirrels were doing in the backyard. After a particularly bad week where I missed a crucial follow-up with my ophthalmologist because my neighbor's car broke down, I hit a low point. I sat in David's armchair, staring at the phone, and cried. I was scared. Scared of falling and no one finding me. Scared of my health deteriorating because I couldn't get to my appointments. Scared of becoming completely isolated. That's when the idea formed. It started as a whisper and grew into what I thought was a perfectly reasonable, mutually beneficial solution. Chloe and Mark were renting an expensive apartment in the city. The town of Oakhaven was exactly halfway between us, a lovely, growing community with a vibrant downtown and good commuter links to the city. It was only an hour and a half from her work, maybe a bit more with traffic, but the cost of living was significantly lower. They could afford to buy a house there. A house with a yard for a future dog, or maybe even a future grandchild. I spent a week rehearsing the conversation in my head. I'd frame it as an investment in their future. I even went to the bank and figured out how much I could offer from my savings to help with a down payment. It was a substantial amount, money David and I had saved for a rainy day. Well, it was pouring. Finally, I built up the courage. I called her on a Tuesday evening. Hi, honey. How was your day? I started, my voice cheerier than I felt. Hey, Mom. Busy. We just landed a huge new client, so it's all hands on deck, she said, the familiar sound of keyboard clicks in the background. Oh, that's wonderful, sweetie. I'm so proud of you. We chatted for a few minutes about her work, about Mark, about a funny show she was watching. My heart was hammering in my chest. Chloe, I said, my voice dropping a little. I need to talk to you about something serious. The clicking stopped. Okay? Is everything all right? Your health? I'm okay, physically. It's this situation. The not driving. It's harder than I let on, honey. It's really, really hard. I explained the missed doctor's appointment, the loneliness, the fear. I tried to keep my voice steady, to not sound pathetic. Then, I laid out my plan. I told her about Oak Haven, about the lower cost of living, the beautiful houses. I told her I could help with a down payment. You wouldn't have to be my chauffeur, I promised, trying to make it sound casual. Just closer. So if there's an emergency, or if I really need a hand with a big grocery run, you're an hour away, not 3. We could see each other for dinner sometimes. It would be so good for both of us. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. So long, I thought the call had dropped. Mom, she finally said, and her voice was tight, cold. Are you serious? Of course, I am, sweetie. I've given it a lot of thought. You've given it a lot of thought? Did you think about me? About Mark? My career is in the city. Mark's job is here. Our friends are here. Our life is here. You're asking me to add a 3-hour commute to my day so I can be on call for you? Her words were like a slap. No, that's not what I'm saying. It's only an hour and a half from Oak Haven, and I thought. You thought you could just by my proximity, she shot back, her voice rising. You thought you could just rearrange my entire life to suit your needs? Mom, this is insane. I feel for you, I really do. But asking me to uproot my life, to sacrifice my career and my relationship stability, it's... She trailed off, taking a sharp breath. And then she said the words that shattered me. You're making yourself a burden, Mom. You're not even trying to find other solutions. You're just asking me to be the solution. I can't do that. I won't. A burden. The word hung in the air between us, ugly and sharp. I couldn't speak. I felt the air leave my lungs. All my carefully constructed arguments, all my hopes for a solution, crumbled into dust. All she heard was a demand. All she saw was a burden. I have to go, I stammered, my throat closing up. I hung up the phone before she could say anything else. I slid out of the armchair and onto the floor, the receiver still clutched in my hand, and I sobbed. Not quiet, dignified tears, but gut-wrenching, painful sobs that echoed in the empty house. It's been 2 days. We haven't spoken. My rational mind is trying to see her side. She's young, her life is just taking off. Was I being selfish? But my heart just feels broken. I wasn't trying to ruin her life, I was trying to stay a part of it. I was drowning and reached for the only lifeboat I could see. And she pushed me away, calling me a weight that would sink her. So, Reddit, I have to ask. AITA here? Was my request so unreasonable that it deserved that kind of response? Am I the selfish, burdensome mother she made me out to be? Thank you to everyone who responded to my first post. The comments were a whirlwind of opinions, and to be honest, I read every single one through blurry, tear-filled eyes. Many of you were incredibly kind, sharing stories of your own aging parents and offering practical advice. You suggested senior transport services, meal delivery kits, and ways to build a local support network. A few of you, and this stung, sided with Chloe. You said my ask was, in fact, monumental and that I had put her in an impossible position. You pointed out that an hour-and-a-half commute is a soul-crushing endeavor for someone with a demanding career. The 2 days after the phone call bled into a week of agonizing silence. My house, once a comforting space, felt hostile. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like an accusation. I replayed the conversation over and over, my own words sounding more demanding and pathetic each time. Chloe's word, burden, was branded on my mind. It was my first thought in the morning and my last thought at night. I didn't reach out to her, and she didn't reach out to me. The silence was a confirmation of my new, unwanted status. My younger sister, Carol, called on Saturday morning. She's the practical one, a retired nurse who has seen every kind of family drama imaginable. Eleanor, you sound awful, she said, skipping the pleasantries. What's going on? I broke down and told her everything. The fear, the loneliness, the perfect plan, and Chloe's brutal response. I expected her to rush to my defense, to call Chloe ungrateful. Instead, she was quiet for a moment. Okay, Ellie, I'm going to be blunt because I love you, she began, and I braced myself. Your idea was born from fear, not logic. You didn't ask Chloe for help, you presented her with a prepackaged solution that only worked for you. Did you ever, for 1 second, ask her what she thought might work? Did you talk to her about your struggles before you came up with a plan to relocate her? I had to admit, I hadn't. I was so wrapped up in my own misery that I saw Chloe not as a person with a complex life, but as a puzzle piece that could solve my problem. You jumped straight to the nuclear option, Ellie, Carol continued gently. You scared her. To a 32-year-old, hearing "move closer to take care of me" sounds like the end of her own life. And the money for the down payment? I know you meant well, but to her, it probably felt like a bribe. A transaction. You're her mother, not her problem to be managed. Carol's words hurt, but they were different from Chloe's. They were a bitter medicine, not a poison. She was right. I hadn't considered Chloe's perspective at all. I had presented my fear as her responsibility. That evening, as I was making a sad dinner of toast and canned soup, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Chloe. The subject line just said, "Mom." My hands trembled as I opened it. It was long, paragraphs and paragraphs of text. It wasn't an apology, not at first. It was an explanation. "Mom," it began, "I want to start by saying that calling you a burden was a horrible, cruel thing to say. It came from a place of shock and anger, and I am so sorry for the pain that word caused you. It's not how I feel about you. You are my mother, and I love you." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "But I also need you to understand my side," she went on. "Your call felt like a complete blindside. Mark and I have been working so hard for the life we have here. I just got a promotion as senior designer, something I've been aiming for 3 years. Mark is on the partner track at his firm. Moving to Oak Haven isn't just a longer commute, it's career suicide for both of us. It's leaving a professional network we've spent a decade building." She then explained things she hadn't told me, things I'd never thought to ask about. They had a close circle of friends who were like family. They were a part of a hiking club. They had their favorite coffee shop, their local farmer's market, their routine. She was right. Their life was there. And there's something else, Mom. Something we haven't told you because we didn't want to get your hopes up. Mark and I have been trying to have a baby for the last year. We had a miscarriage 2 months ago. We're working with a fertility specialist here in the city. The thought of leaving that support system, of adding a stressful move and a long commute on top of what we're already going through, it felt impossible. Reading that felt like a punch to the gut. My daughter was going through one of the most difficult experiences of her life, and I had been so consumed by my own problems I hadn't even noticed. I thought her brief, sometimes distracted calls were just because of work. I hadn't probed. I hadn't asked the right questions. While I was lamenting my empty house, she was grieving an unimaginable loss. When you called and laid out your plan, the email concluded, "It felt like you didn't see me or my life at all. It felt like you saw me as a tool to fix your situation. I know that wasn't your intention, but that's how it came across. I want to help you, Mom. I really do. But we need to find a way that doesn't involve dismantling the life Dad would have been so proud of me for building. Can we please talk, really talk, and figure this out together? I'm scared for you too. Love, Chloe." I sat back in my chair, the phone clutched in my hand. The anger and hurt I'd been nursing for a week washed away, replaced by a profound sense of shame. Carol was right. Chloe was right. The Reddit commenters who'd called me out were right. I hadn't been a mother asking for help. I had been a drowning person trying to pull her rescuer under with her. My fear had made me selfish. I looked around the quiet house. It was still my prison, but the nature of my sentence had changed. Before, I was a victim of circumstance, my age, my health, my isolation. Now, I felt like a perpetrator of my own making. I had hurt my daughter deeply, at a time when she needed my support the most. The question was no longer AITA. The question was, how in the world do I fix this? How do I rebuild the bridge I had so carelessly burned? I had asked her to be my solution. Now, I had to find my own. The morning after receiving Chloe's email, I felt a shift inside me. The cloud of self-pity had parted, revealing a landscape of stark reality. My daughter was in pain, and I had added to it. The shame was a powerful motivator. I couldn't undo what I'd said, but I could change what I did next. I owed it to her, and I owed it to myself, to stop seeing myself as a victim and start being resourceful. Armed with some of the suggestions from my original Reddit post and a newfound determination, I spent the entire day on the phone and the computer. My vision makes screen time difficult, so I used the accessibility features on my tablet to magnify the text, my nose practically pressed to the glass. It was slow and frustrating, but it was progress. First, I called my local area agency on aging. I spoke to a very patient woman named Maria who listened to my story without judgment. She was a fountain of information. She told me about a volunteer driver program specifically for seniors needing rides to medical appointments. The volunteers were background-checked retirees, and you just had to book a week in advance. I signed up immediately. Next, I tackled the grocery problem. I discovered that the main regional supermarket, the one 15 miles away, had a program called Shop Along. For a small monthly fee, a store employee would be assigned to you. You'd email or call on your list, and they would do the shopping for you. You could then either have it delivered for an extra fee or take the senior shuttle to the store to pick it up. I subscribed to the service, feeling a small thrill of control. Finally, I looked up the community center. I saw they had a weekly luncheon, a film club, and, get this, a van that picked up residents within a 5-mile radius. I hadn't been to the community center in years. I always thought it was for old people, a distinction I, in my pride, never applied to myself. Swallowing that pride, I called and put my name down for the luncheon the following Wednesday. Each call I made, each form I filled out, felt like laying a new brick in the foundation of my independence. It wasn't the life I had before, but it was a life. It was a plan. My own plan. That evening, I took a deep breath and called Chloe. She answered on the first ring, her voice cautious. "Mom?" "Hi, sweetie," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I got your email. And before you say anything, I need to apologize. Properly. I am so sorry, Chloe. For everything. For being so consumed by my own fear that I couldn't see yours. For not being there for you when you were going through something so awful. There's no excuse. I was selfish, and I hurt you, and I am deeply, truly sorry." I could hear her exhale on the other end. "I'm sorry too, Mom. For how I spoke to you. You were just defending your life," I said quickly. "A life you've worked hard to build. A life I'm proud of. You had every right." Then, I told her about my day. I told her about Maria from the Agency on Aging, the volunteer drivers, the grocery service, and the community center luncheon. I told her I was building my own support system here. "You don't have to be my solution, Chloe," I finished, my voice cracking a little. I just want you to be my daughter." There was a moment of stunned silence. "Wow, Mom," she finally said, and her voice sounded lighter than it had in months. That's amazing." "Really?" We talked for almost an hour, a real conversation. She told me more about the fertility treatments, and I just listened. I didn't offer advice or platitudes, I just held the space for her to share her pain. It felt like we were reconnecting a frayed wire, the current of our relationship slowly starting to flow again. We were wrapping up the call, both feeling a sense of fragile hope. "I have my first volunteer driver taking me to my eye appointment on Thursday," I said, feeling a surge of pride. and I'm going to the luncheon on Wednesday." "That's great, Mom, really," she said. And then it happened. I was standing in the kitchen, leaning against the counter. As I shifted my weight to put my teacup in the sink, a sudden wave of dizziness washed over me. The room tilted violently. My hand lost its grip, and the ceramic cup crashed to the floor, shattering into a dozen pieces. I gasped, stumbling sideways and grabbing the edge of the counter to steady myself. "Mom? Mom, what was that? Are you okay?" Chloe's voice was sharp with panic. "I'm fine, honey, I just dropped my cup," I said, my heart pounding. My head was still spinning. I slid down the counter to sit on the floor amidst the broken ceramic, my legs feeling like jelly. "You don't sound fine. Your voice is shaky. What happened?" "I just got a little dizzy, that's all. I'm sitting down now." "I'm okay," I insisted, trying to keep my voice calm, but the tremor was undeniable. Her response was instantaneous, and the tone was completely different from a moment before. The cautious daughter was gone, replaced by a terrified one. "Dizzy? Why are you dizzy? What if you had hit your head? You're there all alone." "See, Mom, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I've been terrified of. All these services are great, but they're not there at 8 p.m. on a Tuesday when you get dizzy and fall." "Chloe, I didn't fall," I said, but my words were lost in her rising panic. "I'm calling Dr. Miller. I'm looking up home health aides in your area. You need a medical alert button. Maybe you shouldn't be alone. Maybe you should look into assisted living. I can research some places near you." The words tumbled out of her, a frantic cascade of solutions. And just like that, the dynamic had flipped entirely. A week ago, she was pushing me away for being a burden. Now, she was trying to bubble wrap my entire life. I had wanted her help, I had wanted her closer. But this overbearing, panicked version of help felt just as suffocating as the isolation. I had fought to reclaim a sliver of my independence, and in one dizzy spell, she was ready to take it all away again. "Chloe, stop," I said, my own frustration rising. "I'm fine. I just need a minute." "You're not fine," she insisted, her voice verging on hysterical. "You need to be properly looked after." The fear that had driven me to make that disastrous first phone call was now radiating from her, 1,000 times more intense. I had wanted her to understand my vulnerability. Now she understood it all too well, and her reaction was to try and put me in a cage, albeit a gilded, well-meaning one. The silence between us had been broken, only to be replaced by a new, more complicated kind of noise. The week following my dizzy spell was, in a word, suffocating. The fragile truce Chloe and I had brokered was shattered, replaced by a new dynamic that was far more invasive. My daughter, the one who had accused me of trying to uproot her life, was now attempting to micromanage mine from 150 miles away. The pendulum had swung from "you're a burden" to "you're a fragile object that must be managed at all costs." I wasn't sure which was worse. Her panic manifested as a relentless campaign of help. My phone, once a symbol of my isolation, now became an instrument of her anxiety. She called 3 times a day. "Morning, Mom. Did you sleep okay? Any dizziness? Just checking in, Mom. Did you eat a proper lunch? Something with protein? Night, Mom. Is the back door locked? Don't forget to take your blood pressure medication." It was an interrogation disguised as care. She meant well, I knew she did. Her fear was a twisted reflection of her love for me. But it was maddening. I started to dread the sound of my ringtone. Then, the packages started arriving. First, it was a medical alert system. A sleek white box with a necklace and a wristband, each with a large red help button. I hadn't agreed to it. She'd just ordered it and had it sent to my house. "Just wear it, Mom. For my peace of mind," she said over the phone. I left it in the box on the dining room table, a monument to her anxiety. Next came a delivery from a meal service. Not the grocery shopping assistance I had arranged for myself, but a full-blown, pre-cooked meal delivery. Little plastic trays of bland, low-sodium chicken and steamed vegetables. "I found a service that specializes in senior nutrition," she announced proudly. "They'll deliver a week's worth of meals every Monday. You don't have to worry about cooking anymore." The implication was clear: I was no longer competent enough to feed myself. My small joy of planning a meal, of chopping vegetables and smelling the spices, was being outsourced. I called the company and canceled the service, which led to a tense, tearful phone call with Chloe. "I'm just trying to help," she cried. "Why are you fighting me on everything?" "Because you're not helping, Chloe, you're taking over." I retorted, my voice sharper than I intended. "You're treating me like a child. I am a 67-year-old woman who is perfectly capable of making her own dinner." The peak of this well-meaning invasion came on Friday. I got a call from a woman with a brisk, cheerful voice. "Hello, is this Eleanor Vance? My name is Brenda, and I'm a care coordinator with Senior Solutions. Your daughter, Chloe, contacted us. She's requested a full in-home safety and capability assessment for you. I can be there on Tuesday at 10 a.m. I was floored. A capability assessment? It sounded like something you'd order for a piece of machinery, not your own mother. She had arranged for a stranger to come into my home and judge my ability to live in it, all without even asking me. "There's been a mistake," I said, my voice dangerously calm. "I did not request this service, and I do not require it. Please cancel the appointment." I hung up and immediately dialed Chloe. She picked up, her voice bright. "Hi, Mom. Did Brenda from Senior Solutions call you? Isn't it great? They'll check for fall risks and make sure you have everything you need." That's when I snapped. "How dare you?" I seethed. The carefully controlled patience I'd been maintaining all week evaporated. "How dare you arrange for a stranger to come into my home and assess me like I'm livestock? Did you hear a single word I said the other day? About the volunteer drivers? About the community center? About wanting to be independent?" "Of course I did," she said, her voice defensive. "But independence is only good if you're safe. What if you'd fallen last week and I hadn't been on the phone? What if you'd hit your head? You could have laid there for hours, Mom. Days. And what if I did?" I shot back, the words tasting bitter. "That is my risk to take. This is my life. You were so worried about me being a burden, but you've become one, Chloe. A constant, hovering, suffocating burden on my spirit. You don't want to help me live my life, you want to manage my decline." The line went silent. I had thrown her own word back at her. It was a low blow, but in that moment of pure frustration, it felt like the only weapon I had. I can't do this," she finally whispered, her voice thick with hurt. "No matter what I do, it's wrong. When I keep my distance, I'm a bad daughter. When I try to get involved, I'm a suffocating burden. There's no way for me to win. This isn't about winning, Chloe," I said, my anger deflating into exhaustion. "It's about listening. You're not listening to me. You're only listening to your own fear. And you're not listening to mine," she countered, a sob in her voice. "I'm terrified of getting a call from a hospital in the middle of the night. I'm terrified of you being alone. You told me you were scared and lonely, so I'm trying to fix it. What do you want from me?" And there it was. The core of our new conflict. We were standing on opposite sides of a canyon, shouting at each other. She thought I was being stubborn and proud, refusing necessary help. I thought she was being controlling and disrespectful, stripping me of my autonomy. We were both operating from a place of fear, but our fears were in direct opposition. My fear was of losing my independence, of becoming a non-person waiting to die. Her fear was of losing me, of a sudden, preventable tragedy. She heard my request for help as a request for a manager. I had wanted a partner in my independence, and she had decided I needed a warden. The call ended with a quiet, defeated goodbye. I sat in the silence of my home, the medical alert box staring at me from the table. The irony was crushing. For weeks, I had dreamed of Chloe being more involved in my life. Now that she was, I just wanted her to leave me alone. We had fixed nothing. We had just traded one heartbreaking problem for another. The 2 days after our explosive fight were miserable. The silence returned, but this time it was heavy with mutual resentment. I felt like a teenager who had slammed the door on her overbearing parent. She probably felt like an unappreciated daughter who was just trying to do the right thing. We were at a total impasse. The well-meaning prison she was building around me was just as isolating as the one my physical limitations had created. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Mark, Chloe's boyfriend. He called me on Sunday afternoon. I was hesitant to answer, but I'm glad I did. "Eleanor," he said, his voice calm and steady. "I'm not calling to take sides. I'm calling because I love Chloe, and I care about you, and you're both miserable." I let out a shaky breath. "I don't know what to do, Mark." "I know," he said. "Chloe is a fixer. It's what makes her great at her job. When she sees a problem, her immediate instinct is to solve it as quickly and efficiently as possible. When you got dizzy on the phone, your problem got upgraded from needs assistance to critical safety risk in her head. She went into full crisis management mode. She wasn't treating you like a person, she was treating you like a project with a high risk of failure." Hearing it put so bluntly was illuminating. He wasn't making excuses for her, but he was explaining her. "She's been a wreck, Eleanor," he continued. "She feels like she failed you when you first asked for help, and now she feels like she's failing you again by helping too much. She's terrified. The miscarriage hit her harder than she lets on, and the thought of losing you, too, it's just too much for her to handle rationally." He suggested something radical, a face-to-face meeting on neutral ground. He proposed that he and I drive to Oakhaven, the very town I had tried to move her to, and Chloe would drive there from the city. We'd meet for lunch. No agenda, no accusations. Just a chance to see each other as people again. I agreed. I was nervous, but I knew it was the only way forward. The following Saturday, Mark picked me up. The drive was pleasant, and we talked about everything but the situation with Chloe. It was nice to just have a normal conversation. We arrived at a charming little cafe in Oakhaven's town square. Chloe was already there, sitting at an outdoor table, looking pale and anxious. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. I walked over, and we just hugged. A long, tight hug that said all the things we couldn't articulate. We were both sorry. We were both scared. We both loved each other. We sat down, and for the first few minutes, we just made small talk. Then, I took a deep breath and started. "Chloe," I said, looking directly at her. "I need you to hear this. I am not a project to be managed. I am your mother. And I am still a person with a mind of her own." I explained my fear, not of dying, but of not living while I was still alive. Of having my choices taken away from me until there was nothing left of the woman I used to be. Then, it was her turn. "And I need you to hear this, Mom," she said, her voice trembling. "My biggest fear is that my independence will cost you your life. That I'll be so busy living my life 3 hours away that I'll miss the one moment you truly need me." Mark, playing the gentle moderator, said, "So, it sounds like you both want the same thing, for Eleanor to be safe, and for her to be independent. Those things don't have to be mutually exclusive. We just need to find the right balance." And that's what we did. Over the next hour, we built a new plan. A real one, together. First, the crisis management stuff. I agreed to wear the medical alert necklace. I explained that I didn't see myself as someone who needed it, but I could see it as a tool that would give her peace of mind, which in turn would help our relationship. It was a compromise. In return, she agreed to cancel the home health assessment and to never, ever sign me up for a service without my explicit permission again. Second, the support stuff. We established a new routine. She and Mark would drive down for one full weekend a month. Not just to do chores, but to spend quality time. We'd go out to dinner, watch movies, work in the garden. It would be a visit, not an inspection. We also set up a standing video call every Wednesday evening, so we could see each other's faces. Third, the local stuff. I told them about my first trip with the volunteer driver, which had gone wonderfully. I described the community center luncheon, where I'd reconnected with 2 old acquaintances. They were thrilled. They saw that I was genuinely building my own life here. My independence wasn't just a stubborn refusal of help, it was an active pursuit of a new way of living. Finally, we talked about the future. Not as a problem to be solved today, but as something to be aware of. I admitted that my big 2-story house might become too much for me in a few years. I told them I would, when I was ready, start exploring options for downsizing, maybe to a condo or a senior community in my own town, near the friends I was making and the services I was using. We left that cafe in Oak Haven feeling like a family again. The tension was gone, replaced by understanding and a concrete plan we had all created. It's been a month since that meeting. Chloe and Mark came for their first weekend visit, and it was perfect. We weeded the garden, and Mark fixed a leaky faucet I'd been ignoring. We ordered pizza and played a board game, laughing until our sides hurt. Chloe didn't once ask me if I was feeling dizzy. I wear the necklace. I go to my luncheons. I have a volunteer driver, Stan, who tells the worst jokes but always gets me to my appointments on time. My world isn't as big as it used to be, but it's mine. And it's not shrinking anymore. The original conflict wasn't just about a driver's license. It was about fear, control, and a failure to communicate. I wanted help, but I asked for it in a way that erased my daughter's life. She wanted to help, but she did it in a way that erased my autonomy. We both learned that love, especially between a parent and an adult child, requires constant negotiation. It's about finding that delicate, beautiful, and sometimes difficult balance between holding on and letting go. So, to answer my own original question, yes, I think I was the asshole for how I initially asked. But I think we both ended up in a much better place because of it.